Hello and welcome to your February edition of Book Bites Elementary Snacks. Here we will book talk 3 different books and I will read the first chapter of just one. This month we're celebrating Black History Month. We're looking at books exploring the African American experience in our past. The history of African Americans is part of the past, present, and future of America, and we should all work every month of the year to fully understand our past, work for justice in the present, and create a better future. So the 3 books that I'm discussing this month all have different ways of presenting the past. So first we have a traditional historical novel, which is just set in the past. Next we have a fictionalized memoir, so it's a biographical look at one person in history with the permission of their estate and family that describes their past as if you're living it. And we also have a modern book where someone in our time learns about the past through their experiences. They're all great ways to really bring the past into our present. Our first selection for this month is the historical novel Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry by Mildred D. Taylor. Mildred D. Taylor just won the Children's Literature Legacy Award this year from the American Library Association. This novel won the 1977 Newbery. It is an absolute classic. It features the Logan family in the 1930s as they faced Jim Crow laws, the Great Depression, racism, the Klan, and it is an absolutely towering work. So fantastic. You will absolutely adore it. Next up, we have a fictionalized memoir. This is a look back at the childhood of Cassius Clay as he becomes Muhammad Ali. It's an absolute icon in sports and American history. This takes 2 very famous authors, James Patterson and Kwame Alexander, as they write in both prose and verse, so it has chapters and poetry interspersed in between. It's a very fast and powerful read. It's a lot of fun. You know that Muhammad Ali had a lot of character, and this really brings it all out. It's a great read for sports fans and absolutely anyone who would love to learn about the youth of Muhammad Ali. And our final selection of the month is set in modern times. Nick Stone's Clean Getaway features William Scoob Lamar as his grandma, who he calls G-Ma, takes him on an unexpected road trip, and he learns about the Green Book, the past, his family, and the legacy of racism. It is a lot of deep topics, but it is so funny, so delightful. So it is another great way to learn about the past without being set in a historical time period. If you have a hard time relating to historical fiction, this is a great read. But this month, I can only read the beginning of one of these fantastic books. Which will it be? This month, I'll be reading the first chapter of Becoming Muhammad Ali by James Patterson and Kwame Alexander. So, the book begins. Round 1. I remember everything. You probably would have too. That night was a piece of American history. The Clay family phone was dusty black with a rotary dial, and it sat on a wooden table in the neat-as-a-pin living room of the little house on Grand Avenue in Louisville, Kentucky. Some 20 of us were crammed like sardines into the room, waiting for that phone to ring. Waiting for Cassius to call home. It was a February night in 1958, and I remember it like it was yesterday. My best friend, Cassius, was 300 miles north in Chicago, and that night he was fighting for a championship in the Golden Gloves boxing tournament. Cassius wasn't a professional yet, just an amateur. Tall, but a little skinny and a lot raw. Only 16 years old, like me. I'm Lucius, by the way. Nice to meet you. You can call me Lucky. All my friends do. Cassius had already won plenty of bouts all over Kentucky, but the Chicago Golden Gloves was big time. When he won there, and we all knew he would, it would be lights out. From now on, people everywhere would know the name Cassius Clay. And so we waited for the phone to ring. I remember that living room was so packed with family and friends and neighbors that we could hardly move. The smell of roast chicken and sweet potato pie and cheese grits mixed with the smell of paint and turpentine. Mr. Clay, Cassius's dad, who everybody called Cash, was a sign and billboard painter, and he kept his work supplies right there in the house. Mrs. Clay, somebody called out, when that boy of yours gets famous, he ought to buy you a bigger house. Oh, you know he will, she answered. Then she looked right at me. Isn't that right, Lucius? Yes, ma'am, you know it is. Cassius promised you a big house. I remember that Mrs. Clay was too nervous to eat, but she wasn't too nervous to talk about how proud she was. My Cassius did everything early, she was saying to a group of ladies. He crawled early, talked early, walked on his toes like a dancer. The ladies all laughed, as if they hadn't heard that story 100 times before. But Mrs. Clay just couldn't help it. Cassius always told her he was bound to be the greatest, with a capital G, and she believed it with all her heart. So did I. So did everybody in Louisville's West End. Come on, phone, ring a ding-ding. The men and boys around the room, including Cassius's little brother, Rudy, looked at one another with big grins and made punching motions with their fists. The big fight should be over by now. Under those bright lights in the middle of that huge Chicago stadium, Cassius would be standing tall in the ring with one hand over his head, like always, his opponent next to him with head bowed down in defeat. Then the phone rang. It was Cassius with news about the fight, and he told it like only Cassius could tell a story. Now we go into some of the poetry. So the first one is titled, Before the Fight. A reporter asked me if I thought I was as good as Joe Louis or Sugar Ray was at my age, and I told him, I don't think I'm as good. I'm better, got more flow than Joe, more slay than Ray. I'm sweeter, stronger, and faster. As a matter of fact, I'm so fast I can't even catch myself. All right, what a great start to that book. Place your holds. It is a fantastic read. Thanks so much for joining me for this month's Book Bites Elementary Snacks. Don't forget to check the book list for more great reads for Black History Month. And next month you can join me as I discuss graphic novels. Have a great day. Thanks.